This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. The devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain. Yeah.
Pull up, turn the volume, let the bass ignite. Devil's advocates, that's the channel. Together we fight. They ain't here to echo what the masses preach. They challenge beliefs, putting truth within reach. Flip the script, reverse the lens, ain't no fear to provoke. Unpopular opinions, watch the stagnant water smoke. They dissect the narratives, poke holes in the facade. Sharpening the mind, ain't no truth, no disregard.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
See the description hit hard, that's the blueprint to code. Not everyone likes it, but that's the path they strode. Challenging beliefs, that's the mission, the aim. Flipping tables on conventional, fanning intellectual flame. Stepping opposing view, not for conflicts embrace, but to sharpen the blade of truth. Leave no logical trace of error or bias or thoughts that just float. They dig to the core, let the arguments bloat with substance and reason, not just empty retort. They building up thinkers, a mental fortress of fort.
This ain't no echo chamber. We're unlocking any chain. Devil's advocate speaking, cutting through the fog. Let us explain.
You don't go by always being right, that's a stagnant pool. Growth comes from questioning, breaking every rigid rule. Honest conversations, bold questions, a few uncomfortable facts. They lay it all bare, no turning back, no looking back. Seeking clarity or big debate, either way you win. They push you to understand where your own thoughts begin.
So hit that subscribe button, let the knowledge unfurl.
The devil's advocates,
Changing your whole world.
yeah, it might make you squirm, but that's how you transcend. Listen to the devil's advocates till the very end.
Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you want to know why I'm here today? It's not because I want to give you a pep talk or because I want to make you feel good about yourselves. No, I'm here to tell you the truth.
All right, welcome to the Wednesday night live show. This is going to be all about the Long Island serial killer, or LISK. I'm trying to make certain nights of the week be very locked into a specific topic. So Tuesday night was Luigi Mangione, all Luigi Mangione, and tonight is all Long Island serial killer. Now, tomorrow night is kind of a little bit of a double dose because I'm going to be going live with Pete Altieri from Murder Metal Mayhem again, and we're going to cover LISK on that case as well. By the way, as a little bit of a teaser, and by the way, well, I want to say hi to some people here in just a second. As a teaser, by the way, tomorrow night we're going to have a little bit more of the interview between John Ray and I. John Ray, we're going to cover John Ray tonight in depth, so you'll know who he is. We're going to have another sneak peek of the interview I'm going to premiere on September, I think, 10th is when it is. We're going to premiere that interview with John Ray. So we're going to talk about a few things. Let me first of all welcome a few people in here. Jessica, welcome coming in. Kimberly, my mod, as well. Robin's backstage, ready for me to give her a microphone at some point so that she can interject, but I love to torture her a little bit and make her wait patiently until I decide damn good and well that she can come to the stage. It's just a moment of power I wanted to exert because I have no power in my life. So I'm going to exert it over Robin. Essie, welcome into the room as well. Thank you so much. DKM, welcome. Penny, as always, thank you for coming late. You know, at least you showed up. That's the big thing. You showed up. So welcome to the Twilight Zone. Did you just start? Yeah, I just started. You are almost on time. You were like only moments. And if my dad was running this show, I would lock the door and you wouldn't be able to come in, but that would be no good for my YouTube channel. So anyways, let me get Robin on stage a little bit so that she can interrupt me if needed. Robin, how are you doing tonight?
All righty. Thank you. How about yourself?
Excellent. So Robin is a minion extraordinaire. We call some of the helpers on the backside of my channel the minions, and they love to help out free of charge, which is amazing for me. I've got so much work to do, and I'm trying to build a thing here. And Robin is one of my helpers who likes to come on and help moderate audibly, so that if something comes up that I need to pay attention to, I can say, she can interrupt me and say, would you shut the fuck up? Somebody needs to have a word in edgewise. 1-1, regular, always in our show, amazing support. I didn't even expect to see 1-1 tonight because I know he was watching something else, but breaking away for a little LISK, and I hope I won't disappoint. I will say this. One of the things I want to do, I want to double up tonight. Leah, by the way, thank you for coming in. Appreciate that, for dropping in. I'm going to keep kind of paying attention to that as much as possible. I want to tell you what I want to do for a few minutes of this thing. I'm going to take a new article, a relatively new article that came out. I'm going to highlight about 4 articles tonight. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some new information that you've never heard me talk about. It's something John Ray piqued my interest to. I'm going to get you up to speed on who John Ray is. But what I want to do for this first article that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use it as a primer to the case. I'm going to cut this piece out and make a smaller video for people who are not familiar with the Long Island serial case. So it's going to be a little bit of a rehash of the entire case in about 20 minutes using an article that just came out. So there's some new stuff in there in case you're like, oh my God, I don't want to hear the overview of the case one more time. Well, bear with me. The article has some new stuff, and it'll also be done in a kind of a condensed fashion so that someone who's coming into the Long Island serial killer case late will be able to come up to speed. And so I'll splice that out as maybe a 20-minute segment, and then we'll that way we'll put it in a special playlist for, hey, if you want to learn about the cases I'm going on, watch these videos first and you'll get up to speed very, very quickly. All right. So first thing I want to do is I want to do some positioning of stuff on my stage. I'm going to add that to the stage. This is, and no offense, Robin, but I think I'm just going to put you off. You have Audible, but you're not on the screen at the moment. Are you still there?
Yep, oh, no. I am here.
I was gonna say, I just told it. You're fucking with me, aren't you? It's like she's really silent just to see if she could screw with me. All right, so yeah, let's cover a little bit. I want to say first of all, let me give a little introduction to my channel. This is the Devil's Advocates. This is my main website. This is deviladvocates.info. By the way, I talk a million miles an hour, and when I do that, that's my natural cadence. I'm not speeding up for anything. That's my natural cadence. Sometimes I slow down when I really want to go on with an interviewer, and I don't slow down as much as I should, but I slow down a little bit for my interviews so that I don't lose them. Like, what the fuck did that guy just say? He's talking a million miles an hour, but this is my normal cadence. Anyways, my website right here is devilsadvocates.info. It has a broken link. Look at that. I'm going to show off a broken link on my page. I thought I freaking fixed that before the show. You know what? I need a website designer. Oh, I hit refresh. It's not broken. It's just a cached page. Pardon moi. Anyways, so here we go. Monday, I did the live with Birdie Bombshells. It's a great show when Birdie and I go on. We talked a lot of Idaho 4, so we didn't do a special thing on Idaho. And then also, we've got the Luigi special that happened last night. Now we're doing Long Island serial killer. Are you still there, Robin? It looked like you dropped out of stage and came back. You still there? Oh, I think I lost Robin for a moment.
Something happened. I don't know what happened.
I saw it said you joined the stage, and I'm like, you already were here, but you must have got kicked out. Tomorrow night, Murder Metal Mayhem. By the way, for those who have watched Pete Altieri and I go on Murder Metal Mayhem, A.R. Hayes has been on there for the last 2 shows with us. A.R. Hayes, I guess, has gotten sick and he's in the hospital, so we wish him well. So Pete and I will be going with just the 2 of us talking about Long Island serial killer tomorrow night. And so you get like a double dose of the Long Island serial killer. And then Friday, we have Freaky Friday, which is a new branding I'm trying to do, where I'm going to cover a recap of all the cases that I've done, some new news, some news stories in the news that I'm like, maybe I might cover that story because that's starting to intrigue me. And then we'll ease into the weekend with my After Dark party, which is where I have a few drinks and we go back on Discord and we have a lot of fun. Here's a link, by the way, to my Discord channel. Don't forget on Sundays, I do letters to the inmates for members only. And if you want to buy me a drink or a coffee or something at the Crime Con, which I'm going to next week. Holy shit, that's next week. I'm literally going next week, I think, and getting in a car to go to CrimeCon. By the way, I had an interview scheduled for today with Joshua Zeman. He's a documentarian who did the 7-part series, The Killing Season, Season 1, about the Long Island serial killer. He was going to do an interview with me today. Unfortunately, he's an extremely busy guy, and he's on tour right now with a documentary that he just put out, Checkpoint Zoo. Is that right? I think that's the name of his documentary, and he's traveling around the country doing those things. And so his schedule got too tight and we couldn't go today like we were planning on doing. So we're letting him do his promotional thing. I mean, come on, I should bust the guy's balls. He's putting me on hold to go do like bigger things and be on TV and in movie theaters and shit. Sounds a little selfish to me, but I'll cut him some slack right now, and we'll do that interview coming up sometime in October, which is getting to be a very busy month for everybody, including, by the way, John Ray, who I keep talking about. We're going to get to him right about now. Let me talk about John Ray a little bit, because I'm going to try to meet up with John Ray in October as well. But here's the thing. I just talked to John Ray recently after our interview, and he's got 2 court cases that are going simultaneously that are starting in October and November, and he's not sure what the court dates are going to be. And so my meeting him and my trip is going to be dicey, and whether or not I get to meet John Ray when I'm in person in New York, because he's like, I don't know my docket schedule yet. I don't know when I'm going to be in court, but I want to meet you. So we'll try and work that out, which is pretty cool. All right. So let me remove. No, I don't have to remove. I can get to this article as we're going to talk about the Long Island serial killer. Let's look at the comments. What do we have in here? 1 is asking, already firing. He's already 1 is firing questions already. Let's see if we can get some of these right. How do criminal profiling techniques help to identify suspects like Rex Heuermann? Let's table that. We're going to get to that a little bit later. Great question. What is the significance of Heuermann's occupation as an architect in context of the investigation? I think 0, but we'll get to that. Let's table that for a moment. Let's see. Luigi Revolution, by the way, thanks for stepping in. And let's see, how might Rex Heuermann have chosen his victims, and does it suggest any specific pattern or personal motivation? That also we will table and get to, but thank you for the questions. 1, slow the fuck down. We're getting there. All right. Thank you very much, by the way. I wish I should never argue about interaction. What do you got, Robin? Anything there?
Sorry, I was just laughing at what you were saying with 1. Sorry.
All right, so I'm going to cover this article here from Flying. What the hell is the URL? Flying Ease is the website. I don't even know what Flying Ease is. It's up there at the top. FBI. Now, here's the thing. This article, this is what I've noticed. Some websites get away with ripping off other people's articles 100% entirely. This article, which I believe came from another place like The Sun, I think it was, UK, was blocked by the program that I wanted to use. And so I found the same exact article same exact word for word article printed on somebody else's website. Seems a little bit like copyright infringement. They're like passing it off like it's their own article. 2 people didn't write exactly the same article, so I guarantee it didn't. I don't know how that worked out exactly. But anyways, we're going to use this as a little bit of a read through, and I want to cover some of my own thoughts on the case as I read through it. All right, what do we got here? That's confirmed. When was the trial? When was the trial? Did Rex have victims? Oh, there's the questions. Did Rex have victims? When was that confirmed? When was the trial? So, Vidrios, here's the great thing. It's almost like you're busting my balls on my channel, because you're right. My channel believes in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in the court of law. Rex Heuermann has not been proven to be the Long Island serial killer. If you will be careful of what I've been saying, you'll see I just say we're talking about the Long Island serial killer. I'm not saying Rex Heuermann is the Long Island serial killer. I'm also not saying that he's not the Long Island serial killer. But to be fair, we believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. No, Rex Heuermann has not even stepped into the court for this yet. And we're going to talk about the Fry hearing that's coming up about DNA evidence. So the trial hasn't started, and we on this channel do not convict people in the court of public opinion before you have their first day in court. So we will get to that in a little bit. Although, to be fair, it looks kind of bad for Rex Heuermann, as it often does look bad for the bad guys, if they are bad guys. Anyways, so FBI claims that my husband was the Long Island serial killer who tortured victims in our basement. People ask how I didn't know. That's basically a summary of the article about Asa, the wife, or Asa, depending on how you pronounce it, but I think it's Asa, wife of this man right here, Rex Heuermann, the alleged Long Island serial killer. Which has not been proven that he is the killer. Many believe now that Rex Heuermann has been killing potentially women for 30 years. And at some point, and this was recent information that I showed on my show, at some point the prosecutor said, look, the body count for Rex Heuermann is piling up. And at some point, we just have to put a stop to it and just say we're going to go with only X number of bodies, which I think is 7 or 10 at this point. I want to say it's 7, but then later on, I thought it was 10. So now I got to get that shit straight. But 7 bodies for sure, they're attributing to Rex Heuermann. And at some point, they just said, shut it down. We can't keep adding bodies because every single time we add another body that we think is Rex's, we have to go through the whole discovery process again and show why we think it's him. And it could go on forever because literally his body count, if he's the guy, literally his body count could get into the hundreds of victims. And so they're just going to go with 7. 7 drove me into the arms of another man. 7, whatever. That's a line from Liar Liar, one of my favorite fucking lines. I'm sorry, I just digress. I do that a lot. I'm a pop culture like moron. Anyways, when I hear 7, that's where it comes, where my mind goes. So waiting for her workaholic husband, Rex, to return from work on one balmy July evening in 2023, Asa Heuermann was startled by a rapping on the door, followed by the shouts, FBI, open up. They pushed their way in and asked me, do you know why we're here? Says Asa. And here, by the way, for your this is Victoria Heuermann, the daughter of Rex Heuermann. Well, is she biological of Rex Heuermann? Now I'm trying to remember. She had children. She might have had 1 or 2 children with a previous relationship before him. I don't remember now 100%. Shit, I better get that shit straight. In the background, there's Asa right there. The $1,000,000 question that many people have asked is if Rex Heuermann was killing people in their house, how did his wife and his daughter, his kids, have no idea that was happening? Allegedly, Rex Heuermann would do this while the family was on vacation. And then you must ask, well, how many fucking vacations does this family take that he can kill people only when they're on vacation? It's a $1,000,000 question that's out there. And some people, like attorney John Ray, have hinted that maybe the family actually did know what was going on in that house. How could they not, is something that John Ray would say. How could the family not know what was going on after a long period of time that Rex Heuermann was believed to be killing people in their own house? How could they not know? And he's pointed out, for example, that Victoria here in this picture has a very morbid fascination with dark graphic images of people being cut up and tortured, and views it very positively and seems to make weird comments about it. He covered that in depth. I have a whole video about it. So if you want to see my thoughts on that. And again, I interviewed I did not interview Rex Heuermann. I'm working on that, by the way. I am writing letters to Rex Heuermann. Every Sunday I write a letter to the inmates in the cases I follow. So we'll see about that. Anyways, we're going to get back to John Ray in a minute. So the woman investigator from the FBI said, have you heard about the murders in Gilgo Beach? And I said, this is Asa responding, I have heard of them, but I don't know anything, she said. And then she said, your husband knows all about it. So this is I don't know that it happened this way. This is a reporter covering how the FBI broke in Asa's door and said, by the way, did you know what your husband's been doing? Your husband knows all about these dead girls because your husband kills everybody. Now, again, at the end of the day, this is very disturbing because, again, we should presume bad boys, what you going to do? You should presume that all people are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. And yet here they are breaking down the door saying your husband's a killer. And did you know about it? Robin, do I riff a lot on shit? I do, don't I? I think I do.
You do, but that's why we love you.
Okay. Well, I got a lot of pop culture shit. All right. So the raid from the FBI left Asa and her 2 children, Victoria, 26, and Christopher, 32, stunned and confused. I almost made a bad pun right there. Stunned and confused as Rex Heuermann, a well-respected architect in Manhattan. No one, I don't think the architect thing has a whole lot to do about it, but we'll get back to that. While he was charged with being one of America's worst serial killers. Now, 7 wouldn't make Rex Heuermann one of the worst serial killers in America. The body count that they think he's going to get to is going to make him perhaps the worst or one of the worst there is in America, but we'll see. The sadistic murders of young female sex workers and his appetite for torture and child pornography shocked and sickened the nation. Again, let's be careful. We haven't proven. This is kind of shit that bothers me. While they have not proven Rex Heuermann is the killer, much less that he had torture porn or child pornography on his computer. These are all allegations that haven't been proven in a court of law. It's something someone said, hey, rumor had it when we seized his computer, even though it had been wiped. Forensically, they were able to reestablish files and found that there was torture porn and child pornography and these things on his computer. Allegedly, that evidence needs to be put out in court, and we need to be examined. The jury needs to examine it to see if that's something, again, because we in this country tend to try people in the court of the public opinion. If you just tell people he's a child molester, you already have everybody hating the guy before he starts trial. And that's how we do things in America. We make people hate people before they even start the trial. That way, when the trial happens, you're like, yeah, get that guy, because you've already made up your mind he's the killer. This is how we and again, none of that evidence has been brought out in court. And whether it's true or not, we'll see. The FBI said, we have evidence that your dad murdered all these women. Again, where's the presumption of innocence? Arresting the person's fine. You arrest him, you and you give him his day in court. But, we have evidence your husband murdered all these women. Your home is now a crime scene, recalls the daughter, Victoria, 26, who worked in her dad's office as a secretary. I would have never imagined hearing that in my whole life. Imagine the family. The FBI busts down your door. Your dad's a serial killer. Did you know he's killing a bunch of women? So that's got to be horrible. And your house is a crime scene. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, they tore the living piss out of that house. They literally tore walls apart. They pulled piping out. They tore rafters down. When they left that house, it was destroyed. They destroyed that house in the search for evidence. And some of you would say, well, good for them. Fuck him. He's a serial killer. But we don't know that. Again, he hasn't had his day in court. And if they find out at the end of the day that he didn't do it, is anybody going to pay for the damages on their house? Fuck no. That's what we do in America. We destroy people's shit because you might be guilty of something. We kick your shit in, we break your shit, and we like, yeah, you can have it back in the condition we left it in, which is broken to piss and ruined. That's a whole other side tangent. Again, I'm big on civil liberties and those kind of things. So I'm going to focus on that regardless of whether Rex Heuermann ends up being the serial killer, because the shit that we do in America to get the bad guys is unacceptable, in my opinion. And I'm going to keep highlighting that stuff, whether he is or isn't the killer. Now, the astonishing alleged double life of Rex Heuermann is told in a 3-part Sky crime documentary, The Gilgo Beach Killer, House of Secrets, where Asa and Victoria talk for the first time about living with the man they considered a warm husband and loving father, their conflicting thoughts on whether he would actually be the monster capable of such horrific crimes. Now, before we get too far, I want to point out again as a primer, Asa and her family was paid $1 million for their appearance in that episode. They had remained quiet. They had not had made any public statements about the whole thing until they were paid $1 million to give their side of the story. If you listen to the interview I did with John Ray will couch it like this. They were literally paid to give that performance. And he called it that, I think. He called it a performance. They were paid to give that performance. Everything that happened on that show was paid for. They paid them $1 million. And you can bet when they paid them that $1 million, they're like, you can't give us anything soft. Like, we got to have something that's going to be worthy for TV. So maybe say this, maybe say that. There's some coaching involved. You got to earn your $1 million. That's the allegation from someone like, for example, a John Ray, who might hint, and not, I don't want to put any words in John Ray's mouth, but I think he used the words that essentially they were paid $1 million for that. It was a paid performance. Now, Rex Heuermann has been behind bars since his arrest on the 13th of July, 2023, for the murder of 7 women, but has no trial date set. Those murders happened a long time ago. His incarceration is relatively recent. His court case is coming up next year, probably. So that's where we're at. It's a relatively recent arrest. For a long time, documentaries have been out on the internet, like Gone Girls, which has been out for quite a long time. The book Lost Girls, that the movie Gone Girls, or the documentary Gone Girls, was made about, those have been out since at least like 2016-ish or whatever. When we knew about the Gilgo 4, which we're going to get to in a minute, the bodies that were found that started the whole, oh my God, we have a serial killer in Long Island, we have a serial killer on Gilgo Beach, and that was the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Then now, as it's spread out across Long Island more broadly, now we're calling him the Long Island serial killer, or LISK. Another documentary that came out early on that was, again, Josh Zeman's 7-part documentary, The Killing Season. That was 2016 as well, before Rex Heuermann was even identified as the killer. One of the fascinating things, and man, I ramble a lot. Feel free to interrupt, Robin, if I've got a question I got to get, because I'm on a freaking tirade.
Nope, you're okay.
Okay, so in The Killing Season, before they knew Rex Heuermann was identified, there was some things that came out in that documentary. German guy by the name of Peter Brandt from Web Sleuth was like, you're not dancing with one serial killer, you're dancing with two. Did I do the German accent well? Anyways, it was a cool moment. I love that phrase. That needs to be on everybody's freaking phone. You're not dancing with one serial killer, you're dancing with two. The point being is that the killings across Long Island appear very, very different. Some of them were, for example, were left in plastic bags and chopped up in pieces with parts of their body left. Yes, this is a little gruesome. Oh shit. You know what I need to do? I need to put on my little warning that this is going to be not kid friendly. You know what that is? That is right here in the lower corner. Parental advisory. Let's also take off. I got somebody's comment pinned still, so I'm going to hide that. See the parental advisory? When I talk about serial killers, chances are it's going to get a little gruesome, so pay attention, right? So be forewarned. You can't talk about serial killers and how they kill without getting a little bit gruesome. So again, the Gilgo 4 were largely found in burlap bags, burlap sacks, intact bodies with their hands bound by tape, and one of the four, was bound by belts, I believe. So some of them had, 3 of them had tape, and they were inside bags, and they were intact. One of them had belts. And then the rest that they found later on were like chopped up, dismembered, and parts of their body found all over Long Island. And they're attributing those to Rex Heuermann as well. Now, when I first looked at that, I thought to myself, that's not the same MO. A killer who wants to keep his victims in bags isn't the same kind of killer that dismembers them and puts them all over the place. It's different killers. I thought that from day one before I watched Josh Siemens' thing where they had Peter Brandt do, you're not dancing with one serial killer, you're dancing with 2, and maybe more. There was all through that episode, you found details about how many serial killers are working in the United States at any given time. There are hundreds, I think, serial killers that are known to be active at any given time in the United States. People die all the time by serial killers, all the time. A lot of times they're not caught, and we don't even realize how many serial killers are operating. There are, I almost guarantee you, active serial killers on Long Island right now, despite the boogeyman being in jail, Rex Heuermann. Now, here's the thing. I ask myself, because this is what I do on my show, and this is how we learn about cases. This is how we learn about the law. This is how we learn about civil liberty issues. This is how we learn about the mainstream media, as we have to ask ourselves, are all the bodies that are attributing to Rex Heuermann really his? Are any of them, at the end of the day, his? Let's get it right. Because again, if in the effort to close cold cases, they take a bunch of bodies strewn around New York and say, oh, let's just say it was one of Rex's and put a bow on it, and now we can close a cold case. Yep, Rex's murder. Yep, Rex's murder. Yep, Rex's murder. And maybe it's great for him if he wants to go down in history as one of the most prolific serial killers, but are they really all his? Because if they tie it to Rex, then they stop looking for who it really is, and somebody walks free. So those kind of things bother me on a personal level. Now, the trial that led police to his door, or the trail that led police to his door began with a panicky 911 call on the 1st of May, 2010. Shannon Gilbert, a so-called sex worker who was taking jobs off of Backpage or Craigslist, at 4:51 in the morning, called in on 911 saying that there's somebody after me, he's going to kill me, and she was in a panic. And she later says to her attacker, please stop, and screams before the line goes dead. Police quickly ruled that an accident. They ruled it an accident. They said nobody was out to kill her. They hid the 911 call. It took 4 years for attorney John Ray, hired by the family of Shannon Gilbert. Mary Gilbert was hired John Ray to represent the family and get to the bottom of what really happened to Shannon Gilbert. This was long before we knew about a serial killer. Shannon Gilbert went missing. Mary Gilbert believed that it wasn't just a know-nothing, that they needed to be investigated. They hid that 911 call and transcript for the longest time. When Shannon Gilbert's body was found, she was found in a marsh, and they claimed it was drowning, even though she was upside down, not face inside of a marsh. She had some clothes off of her, so they said that she took her clothes off in a panic in the cold and basically died of hypothermia and drowned. They quickly dismissed it as an accidental death. And yet, listen to this, because there's a massive police corruption element to this. Despite the fact that they ruled it an accidental death, and therefore, in my opinion, that case is closed. She died of an accident. Done. Case is closed. Why did it take 4 years for the families to get the 911 call? Why did it take so long? Why did they stonewall and say it's an open investigation? You can't have it both ways, in my opinion. You can't say she died of an accident and tell everybody in America that it was an accidental drowning right after the case, and then tell people that it's an open case and you're not going to put any information out there about the 911 call. They lied about the 911 call. They said there was no distress whatsoever. Later, when the 911 call finally comes out, much, much further down the road, we find out, yes, indeed, she was panicked. Yes, indeed, she was saying somebody's out to kill me. All the things that we knew were there finally got revealed, but only after they stonewalled everybody and told everybody that didn't happen. Not only that, some shockers that come out in the interview with John Ray and I. Mary Gilbert believed, and she was told by someone involved with law enforcement, listen up, someone involved in law enforcement, Peter Hackett, had a house on Oak Beach, right? I think that was the area, that he said he called Mary, Peter Hackett, who happened to be involved with medical examiner for the police. Somehow he was deeply embedded with police, medical examiner or a forensics specialist or someone like that. He was embedded with the police. He called Mary and said, hey, by the way, I saw your daughter that night. I saw Shannon that night. She came to my house. I run a house for wayward girls. Shannon came to my house that night. I took her in. I treated her medically, and I sent her back with her driver, Michael Pack. That was the last known person who was with Shannon Gilbert that night. And so she left my house, and she was fine when she left. She was treated medically. He told Mary Gilbert that twice. Your daughter came to me. I let her into the house. I treated her medically, and then I released her to Michael Pack, and everything's fine. Later on, Peter Hackett changed his story and said Shannon Gilbert never came into his house. He doesn't know what they're talking about. She knocked on his door. He said, I'm going to call 911 for you. He ignored her, and she disappeared and never was seen again. John Ray took up the charge of the family to get to the bottom of what the fuck that lie was about. And a bombshell that he dropped on my show when we had an interview. And I don't want to steal too much of the thunder of my interview, but a bombshell he talked about is when the police came and they basically took Mary Gilbert to Peter Hackett's house up on top of his roof and showed them where they found her daughter's body from the house of the man that she believes was responsible for killing her daughter. How fucked up is that? And John Ray had other surprises. Something stinks in the Suffolk County Police Department. Something stinks to high heaven in law enforcement's handling of this case. And I hope you're intrigued. If you haven't been intrigued, I hope you're getting intrigued. All right. Sex worker Shannon, 24, had shown up at a house at Oak Beach in Long Island. She was there to see a John, they said, by the name of Joe Brewer. And things didn't go well. Joe Brewer sent her on her way, and then she was never seen again. She fled from that house to the bramble that runs adjacent to the coastline along Gilgo Beach, and then disappeared. Are you trying to make some noise, Robin, for me?
No.
Oh, I hear some scratching over there, so I thought maybe you were trying to get my attention. We need that horn so you can go like, or something like that, so I can hear when you're trying to get my attention. While searching for her body, police found 4 other bodies. Now, what's confusing is it was winter time when she went missing, and they actually put the case on hold for quite a while. They came back later in the spring to continue the search for Shannon Gilbert. So it makes it sound like they just kept looking for her until they found her. Fuck no, that's not how it happened. Months went by where they stopped the search of Shannon Gilbert, and then when they resumed it, they eventually found these other bodies while searching for Shannon Gilbert. By the way, it's a horrible thing that John Ray testified to when we were talking on our thing. And again, I'm trying not to steal all of its thunder. There's plenty of other surprises in there. Mary Gilbert was called to identify several other bodies, saying, hey, I think we found your daughter. It wasn't her. Hey, we found your daughter. It wasn't her. That's horrible for the family as well. And Shannon Gilbert could have been identified. I think she had a titanium plate in her jaw. They should have looked for that first before calling the mother and saying, hey, I think I found your daughter. Anyways, point being, she went through a hell of a situation, and she was later murdered by her other daughter. Holy shit, this case is so nuts. I can't even cover. I realize I can't do 20 minutes of this. It's ridiculous, the amount of shit in this case. All right. They were eventually identified, these Gilgo 4, as sex workers: Maureen Bernard Barnes, 25, who disappeared in July of 2027. Melissa Bartholomew, she was 24, last seen in 2009. Megan Waterman, age 22, vanished in 2010. And Amber Costello, age 27, disappeared in 2010. Police looked at the victims' mobile phone data and found that they were all contacted by a burner phone in the days leading up to their deaths. By the way, here's the thing. Right now, we're about to have a Fry hearing on Rex Heuermann's DNA in this case. My God, there's so much to talk about. The DNA evidence on several of those bodies aren't Rex Heuermann's. They're his wife and his daughter's hair. That also should raise some questions. How did his wife and his daughter's hair get on those bodies? One has argued that, well, it was transfer stuff. He was taping up girls with duct tape in the house that had his wife and his daughter's hair in the house. That's how their hair got to the crime scene. Or are there explanations that are other than that are a little bit more creepy on how their hair got on those things? We don't know. That's going to be for the trial. But what I'm saying with this is there's a Fry hearing coming up on September 3rd, I believe, when the day that I'm traveling to CrimeCon. And so I'm going to miss the Fry hearing. That's going to talk about whether or not the DNA evidence, that hair evidence, is going to be usable or not. Because what we're going to find from this article is that the DNA evidence has degraded so much, they've had to use new techniques to get to those people. And it's going to have shades of Idaho 4. If you're not familiar with IgG and the investigative genetic genealogy and how you use databases and put people's DNA into a ancestry.com to see what relatives they might be connected to and trace it back, that kind of shit is happening in this case as well, from what I understand. But calls were traced in the area to Massapequa Park on Long Island in Midtown Manhattan. Did the suspect live a quiet suburban life in Massapequa and commute every day to Manhattan? So they had a lot of little things, burner phones and some of the tracking. This is why, regardless of whether the DNA comes in this case, it's going to be a circumstantial case, like a lot of cases, that has a lot of other pieces. They're not going to rely on the DNA to get Brian Koberger. Not Brian Koberger. He's not in this fucking case. Pardon my French. I say a little bit of F-bombs a little bit too much. Rex Heuermann, they're going to have that case whether or not his DNA is at the crime scene or can be reliably used at the crime scene. A Fry hearing, by the way, for those who don't know the legal aspect of it, is to determine whether or not there's enough scientific basis for using that DNA evidence. It's actually a trial to determine whether or not the science is good. So they already said the science says it's Rex Heuermann or it's Rex Heuermann's wife or it's Rex Heuermann's daughter that has hair on the bodies. That they're saying is a done deal. But what they're arguing is about, is the science good enough to say those things? And if it's not good enough, then that evidence will not come in and you can't talk about it at trial. Now, within a week of Melissa's disappearance, her 15-year-old sister, Amanda, started receiving a series of sick and twisted calls from a man using Melissa's phone. So Melissa was murdered, and then the killer called her sister from the murdered woman's phone and said things like, have you figured out who this is? Are you going to be a whore like your sister now? She's dead, and I killed her. And another point, I'm watching her body rot. Really, really twisted shit. Was that Rex Heuermann? I don't believe we've been able to identify yet whether or not that's, even on a documentary they had when they had her listen to different voices, she couldn't identify the voice and thing, but it wasn't Rex Heuermann on that documentary. So to be fair, I don't know that we've tested her by Rex's voice. Anyways, at the home of Amber Costello, police interviewed her roommate, Dave Schaller. By the way, there's a great discussion between Dave Schaller on Gone Girls on Netflix, which has one version of the story, and the Gilgo Beach murders, I think it has a different version of the story. The House of Secrets, I think, has a different version of the story. In one version, he's just a roommate of the victim who left the house to go out for the night. And then his roommate called and said, hey, I had this guy come over. He was going to pay me to dance for him, but he wants more than dancing. And I'm terrified. So I've locked myself in a bedroom. Can you please help me? And he came over with a buddy and they scared off this ogre-ish 6'4" ogre, which turned out later to be Rex Heuermann, we believe. And he saved the day. And that was a great story. And it made him look like a hero. Later on, we found out in a different documentary that Dave Schaller, I believe, and this woman, Amber Costello, would run a scam, and they would have Johns come in, and then he would play the jealous boyfriend who comes in, what the hell's going on here? And then they would keep the Johns money and send him on the way. That was a ruse that they ran, and they had been busted for it before. So depending on how you want to view it, are they heroes or are they running a scam? Either way, doesn't mean you end up dead. So there's that. Yeah, doing it in 20 minutes, not fucking possible for me. I got to stop doing the F-bomb. Robin, I need to have a swear jar. I need to have a swear jar.
Oh, we could arrange that.
Yeah, I think, and you're going to be like, okay, devil's advocates, you owe like $70 at the end of your show. All right. So anyways, so Dave Schaller said that this hulking figure was 6'4". He was wearing glasses. He looked like an ogre, and he drove a very distinctive dark green first-generation Chevrolet Avalanche. This is another reason how they got Rex Heuermann eventually. They knew about this guy knew about the Avalanche, but police didn't follow up on it. And then later on, they were going to use the Avalanche as one of the key pieces of evidence against him. That made a lot of headlines as well. I told you about the green Chevrolet Avalanche early on, and you guys didn't follow up on it. By the way, there's a lot of police not following up on shit, and it has a lot of weirdness about what's going on in the police department. Shannon's body was not discovered until December 2011 in the same area as the others. So again, those other bodies were found before Shannon. They went out looking for Shannon. They found a bunch of other bodies, and then eventually they found Shannon. By this stage, the investigators had a description of the killer, the make and the model of his car, and a good idea of the area where he travels between Long Island and Manhattan. But astonishingly, listen to this. And I can't go into it all. I just realized I can't go into it all. Holy shit. All right. Astonishingly, the case dragged on for another decade as the as there was a change of personnel in Suffolk County when the new chief of police elected, James Burke, decided to basically dismantle the task force looking into the serial killer. Well, that's interesting. That chief of police is later arrested and sent to jail for beating up somebody in prison who broke into his car, or beating up somebody in the jail who broke into his car and stole stuff. And they threatened to kill him. He threatened to kill his mother. They beat him up in front of other police officers. And finally, that all came out, and he goes to jail, including the district attorney goes to jail. Oh my God, that shit's covered very, very well in Gone Girls episode 2 on Netflix. You need to watch that if you are into police corruption. It'll blow your mind. And ultimately, later on, John Ray will come forward with a sex worker who claims, oh, by the way, Chief of Police Jimmy Burke, yeah, he and I, we were at a sex party way back in the day. That cop likes to do drugs with prostitutes. And by the way, Rex Heuermann was there. They were all part of a thing. Rex Heuermann was in with cops. They did drugs together. They did prostitutes together. They had a whole thing. Is that even humanly possible in this case? Are police dismantling the task force because they're friends? This case could get absolutely nuts crazy, and it's just getting started. The case did not fully get back on track until May 22, 2022, when an online search for a distinctive green Chevrolet Avalanche in a zone of interest came up. They found the car, and now they had a prime suspect. And 59-year-old bespectacled Rex Heuermann was this giant man. They ended up, I'm going to cut ahead a little bit. They ended up getting his DNA. They needed to get his DNA, but they didn't have a warrant for it. So what they did is they followed him until he came out of his office one day with pizza and threw his pizza box and leftover crust in a trash can, and they swooped in to get his DNA off the pizza crust. They developed the DNA. They ended up linking it to the crimes somehow. A long story short, and they made the arrest of Rex Heuermann based on discarded pizza in a trash can. All right, so and then it turns out at the end of this here, investigators were startled to find that Heuermann, who had eluded them for so long, lived 1 block away from the Nassau County Police Academy, where the intelligence on the case was being gathered. He lived 1 block from when they were gathering intelligence on him, 1 block away from them. That's crazy stuff as well. The fact that the devil is walking amongst us made you wonder how it happened. Basically, it was a person that lived next door. Anyways, so that was interesting. Here's some, by the way, some pictures from the house that they ended up basically devastating. I'm going to try to cut ahead a little bit. In the house, by the way, Rex Heuermann was a collector of firearms. He had 279 firearms in the basement. He had a locked vault behind a steel door. He had a room that no one was allowed, his family was not allowed to go into. Hey, don't go into this room. It's locked. Don't fucking touch my shit. That should have been suspicious for the family right there. They believed that women were killed in that room or down in the vault, which was a soundproof vault, which made it possible for him to do killings inside of his house without his family knowing about it. Is that possible? Well, that's what they say. And then, of course, when they seized his computer, investigators found laptops and his mobile phone were used to conduct thousands of searches related to sex workers, as well as sadistic, torture-related, and child pornography. There was even a hint at one point that some of the videos were snuff videos that Rex Heuermann had made himself of people that he killed in his house. Is that possible, or is that just wild shit that gets really good press? We don't know. And in that, in there as well, he also had a document that they happened to recover forensically. They said that lists where Rex Heuermann was documenting where he would have good dumping zones for his bodies. Hey, here's a good dump zone 1, dump zone 2. Here's where I can dump bodies. So they say that it's all laid out. It's all laid out, and it's all there, and it may be. And so they dubbed that house where they think he was killing women in the basement of his house, the House of Horrors. And then they started asking questions. How did the family not know about it? And the family was often out of town when the murders happened. Oh yeah, here's a picture of the pizza box with the crust that led to Rex Heuermann's capture. Or it's just a photograph of a pizza box and a headline below it, and we just don't ask questions. It doesn't really matter. That's something that they do all the time. Like, we need to get a picture of a pizza box with some crust in it. Okay. The family find it difficult, despite mounting evidence, to believe that Rex was the man that they thought he was. People say, how could you not know your husband was a serial killer? But my husband was a family man. I don't believe that he did this. I'm convinced the person that they're looking for is not this family man. The two of us were married 27 years. There was 100% part of each other's lives. Does everyone really believe everything they hear? She goes on and on. The long story is, at the end of the day, Victoria didn't believe that her dad could be capable. That her, as she says here, my dad used to buy me or build me doll houses. I have fond memories of him. Just before this thing aired, Victoria did said that she changed her mind, basically said, I think it's down here, we have to skip ahead because I'm just going way too long, that she does now believe that her father she's coming to grips with the fact that her father may have been the Long Island serial killer. Forget the idea of me doing those quick summaries, Robin. I'm going to have to find another way to do that. I've got 3 other articles that I want to get to, and I'm not even getting to these yet. So let's cover those as quickly as possible. If you don't know, Asa Hurman, by the way, who had no job, had been married to the same man for 27 years. That man was an architect and the breadwinner of the family. Asa, and so her son has medical issues. Asa, I think, has medical issues. And all of their health insurance came through the man, Rex Hurman, their husband. When he went to jail for these crimes, they lost everything. They lost his business. They lost their sole breadwinner. They lost their insurance. They were devastated. And their house was destroyed by law enforcement in the search for evidence. Asa then asked for 2 things. She asked for the 279 guns that they took from Rex Hurman's vault. She wanted them back. She actually got shamed in mainstream media for wanting the guns back. What kind of sick person wants guns back from her killer husband? Well, she's destitute, is what I would argue as the devil's advocate. She's destitute, and those guns are the only thing that have value in her life. So she's trying to sell off her property. I'm playing devil's advocate with Asa's position. One of the things that she tried to sell, and it gets a little creepy at this point, was Rex Hurman's Jeep, that's seen in this picture. On eBay, she listed a Jeep. Now, here's where Asa went a little creepy. Asa basically said, this Jeep was owned by the alleged Long Island serial killer that he drove around during the period of time then the murders took place. That might have been a little over the top, Asa. So it was trying to drive up the price of selling her husband's Jeep because, again, the family is destitute and needs to make money. Now, eBay had a problem with her wording of saying, hey, look, this car was driven during the time of the murders. That was a little bit too much even for eBay. So she ended up putting it back on, just saying, oh, by the way, this car was driven by alleged Long Island serial killer, but didn't have some of the extra stuff. And they were okay with that. Then what happened is this man in that picture right there decided, let's blow him up. Jonathan Randall. I reached out to this guy for an interview tonight to see if I can get him on here. Jonathan Randall's getting his 15 minutes of fame because he bought that Jeep for $25,000 to troll the family. When he won the bid and they asked for the money, he basically said, you're not going to profit off your husband's murder, you disgusting ghoul. Guess who's not paying? This guy. So he thinks it's funny. He won the bid on the thing just so he could tell her, I'm not going to let you profit off of your husband's murder, you sick piece of crap. And that's all fine and dandy. But again, we don't even know Rex Hurman is the killer. This guy has got it all figured out. So he knows Rex Hurman is the killer and that his wife is trying to profit off of the killing of innocent women. But for what it's worth, I wanted to talk to him, not to bust his balls, but to ask some questions like, how did you get to the point where you are 100% convinced that Rex Hurman is the killer and that Asa is trying to profit off of her husband's thing? Can we play devil's advocate for a minute? What if they're destitute and have no money? What was she supposed to do? Now, I was going to do that very carefully because I don't believe in bringing anybody onto my show and shaming them. That wasn't what that was going to be. But since he didn't come on the show, I guess I'll be a little bit more harsh with it. But I would have been nice to the guy. Trust me, I have no desire to bring anybody on my show and bust their nuts in front of everybody and make them look like an idiot. It would have been a very civil conversation. All right. Another article here, this is talking about the DNA evidence that's coming out, the the argument, the Fry hearing that's coming out. Prosecutors have filed their closing arguments regarding whether or not the known DNA evidence can be used in the Gilgo Beach murders. Suffolk County District Attorney's Office said that the method that they used to identify the hairs on the bodies victims is widely accepted and relevant in scientific communities. Prosecutors say that the hairs link Rex Hurman to the murdered women. The defense, however, argues that their inclusion as evidence during the closing arguments last week shouldn't be there because that science is not well established and is not trustworthy. So that's where we are. Coming up on the Fry hearing on the 3rd is them arguing in court, a judge saying, am I going to allow the scientific evidence that says Rex Hurman's hair, his wife's hair, and his daughter's hair are on the crime scenes and you can tie them that way? If they don't agree to the DNA, his hair or his wife's hair or his daughter's hair tying him to the crime scene, they still have cell phone calls, they still have his avalanche, they still have his movements that they've tracked from various things. So, but as with anything, if you have good solid DNA evidence, it's certainly helpful. So what will the case look like without the DNA evidence? Now, the last thing I want to point out as we have, and is there any comments I need to take before I get my last article, Robin?
No, not right now.
Okay. So the last thing I want to point out is another bombshell that I swear there's still bombshells from John Ray, and you need to hear it from his own words. But another bombshell that John Ray dropped was something that came out, and I had to vet this a little bit myself after he said it because I wanted to try and get to the bottom of it, was that Shannon Gilbert, the person who started the whole search for Shannon Gilbert and led to the Gilgo 4 and then led to the Gilgo 7 and the Long Island serial killer and all that shit, all of it happened because of Shannon Gilbert. And there was a story that Shannon Gilbert was kind of like a low-paid, back page Craigslist sex worker who went to go do a job at Oak Beach, where again Joe Brewer was at, and it was like a $300 trick. John Ray surprised me when we were talking by saying Shannon Gilbert, he now has receipts, wasn't some $300 low price trick. She was a top money earner. Her rate was more like $3,000 to $5,000 for the evening. And she worked for, and he dropped the name Lace Party Girls and Joseph Ruiz. So I had to look into Joseph Ruiz, who is on my screen right here. New Jersey, and he even said Shannon worked for a guy named Joseph Ruiz in New Jersey, and he ran an organization called Lace Party Girls. This article that I found about it from Action News ABC talks about Hudson County prosecutors say that 44-year-old Joseph Ruiz, a Jersey City, made money through a prostitution ring that he ran by providing illegal drugs to clients. That's one of the things that he said as well. These prostitutes would be hired at such a high rate because they would come with cocaine. You wouldn't just get your prostitute. You get your prostitute delivering cocaine with her at the same time, and that made the price go way up. So prosecutors say authorities seized several $100,000 from bank accounts associated with world-class party girls, aka Lace Party Girls, aka several other company names that they use, which charge customers rates from $500 to $3,500 per hour. Investigators found credit card bills as high as $20,000 for one session, where more than one prostitute and cocaine was involved. And they say customers had tabs as high as $100,000. Ruiz remains free on a $500,000 bail as of the time of this particular writing, which was in 2010. Now he's in jail now and has been sentenced. But one of the co-defendants in that case was Shannon Gilbert. And that part I haven't been able to prove, but I've seen it online all over the place. Shannon Gilbert, the one who was murdered, well, okay, police say it was an accidental drowning, but the woman that I believe was murdered was involved in a high-priced and a call girl service out of New Jersey, working with Ruiz, and she was a co-defendant in that case before she was murdered. Do I think the murder had to do with that particular case? I don't know. But what I'm telling you is when you start investigating who was linked to who, when you start investigating who was linked to who, this case will get nuts. And I'm going to be doing some on the boots work in New York, going there to visit the area and walk it down myself. I don't think I'm going to knock on any doors and get shot, and I'm probably not going to make friends with Suffolk County Police Department, but I'm going to go there and take a look at some things and see what I can do. All right. I have talked for a really, really long time. I think I've covered the major parts that I wanted to cover. Do we have one is probably stacked with a million questions. So do we have any other questions in the room? I'll see about one as well.
No, I think really one was what started all that off.
All right, I'm going to go to one of his. What ethical dilemmas do investigators face when his comments are so philosophical. What ethical dilemmas do investigators face when pursuing suspects with no immediate physical evidence, like in the Huerman case? I don't know how to answer. That's a great question. My brain is not working on a high enough frequency at the moment to answer that question. What a great question. I highlighted it and I don't even have a thought for it at the moment. I mean, what ethical dilemmas do they face when pursuing suspects? They had no immediate physical evidence. It was a lot of circumstantial evidence. And I don't know. Here's the thing. I guess here's what I would say. I do have something to say about it. It's okay to have a primary suspect, and it's okay to have a theory about who did it, and it's okay to make an arrest when you think you've got enough evidence. That's how our system works. And then we have a trial to see if you got the right guy based on the evidence. So developing what you can and saying, I think it's this guy because there's a 6'4" ogre that drives a green Chevy Avalanche who happens to be in Massapequa and goes to New York and Manhattan on a regular basis and seems to fit all those times. That's great. There's no problem with, and in my opinion, of making that arrest and saying, let's see if that's the guy. We've got enough to make an arrest. Now let's see if it's the guy and if it holds up in court. The FBI tore that house up. I heard they pulled pipes out of the walls and it was destroyed. Yes, they absolutely pulled pipes out of the wall. They tore rafters down because they believed that Rex Heuermann may have been suspending women from the rafters, and they literally took rafters down to see if there was evidence of drilling holes for suspension or anything like that in the rafters. I mean, they tore that place apart.
Lee, one's question earlier, something you said just clicked. With him being an architect, could that have, he would know how to build a room like that, wouldn't he?
Well, so here's the weird thing about the architect thing. So Rex Heuermann was, quote unquote, an architect, and yet his house was an absolute dump. In the neighborhood where he was at, the houses around him are much nicer. Here's the word. I'm going to get to the heart of your question about the suspension, cabling, and architecture inside the house. And certainly, so I have to get to it right now. Certainly, Rex Heuermann took an opportunity when the family was allegedly out of town to rebuild the basement and make that walled-in vault and special safe room, if you will. And he did that while the family was out of town. So he knew how to do some building work as well and some things about architecture. But from what I understand, his architecture work had more to do with the finance side, like appraising architecture. I don't know that he was an engineer slash, designing architecture as much as he was into the finance side about appraising architecture, putting prices on it, things like that. I'm not 100% sure, but that's what it seemed like to me. But I don't think, to your point, yeah, could his knowledge of architecture help him know? But again, do you need to be an architecture specialist to know that if you want to hang something, you want to have a good support beam? Do you have to be an architect to know those things? I don't know. So I don't know that it has for me at the moment, I'm not putting a lot of weight on his life as an architect as being a significant to the case at the moment. So what else do we have? I saw Mel OD. Nicole said, this is the whole story's crazy. Absolutely. It's nutbaggish. I think it's going to be super interesting. How does Rex Heuermann's history of interactions with law enforcement compare to other serial killers? That is a really good question. I honestly don't study serial killers. I have a friend that studies serial killers. I don't know how often serial killers are former law enforcement or involved in law enforcement or friends with law enforcement. So I don't have any statistics on that, but it's a really good question. And maybe we can deep dive into that sometime and talk about that. Karen Duncan says, wow, that's good information about her employer. If you're talking about Joseph Ruiz, yes, that was really interesting stuff for internet sleuths to go find out more about. I think there's a story behind the story there. That's the best thing about this. When I cover true crime, what I do is I uncover the story behind the stories, because when you start following little breadcrumbs, you'll find out. For example, we might find a crap ton of information about lace party girls that doesn't directly relate to Rex Heuermann, but it will be super fascinating and educational along the way. So as we go down those things, we'll learn a whole lot of things in this case. Excited to see the interview with John Ray. Yes, absolutely. Again, it's recorded. It's in the can. A preview of that, by the way, is available, I believe, still for members only to look at right now. So if you're a members only for $3, you can buy a membership to my YouTube channel, member only area. And I think you can watch that video in its entirety right now, but I'm going to premiere it for the public on September 10th to hopefully a very large audience. And we'll have some questions. And John Ray is planning on being there live for questions and answers at the end of that aired documentary. So I'll probably air it for about an hour and 20 minutes. He'll come in probably at the end of an hour and be waiting on hand for the end, so that you guys can all ask questions that you got inspired to ask from watching that documentary. Karen Duncan also says, I think the years of unethical police chief slowing the investigation intentionally will cause long-term issues. 100%. I don't think that story is done yet. And it would be interesting to ask AI, why would an architect live in a dump? Oh, I didn't get to that. So the reason why Rex Heuermann lived in a dump, allegedly, was, get this, it was his childhood home. It's where he grew up. And there was allegations that he had a bit of an abusive father, an abusive childhood. Literally, the kill room, they said at one point, and I haven't been able to vet this, the kill room that they believe Rex Heuermann killed people in was his childhood bedroom. So how fucked up is that? From a psychological perspective, did Rex Heuermann, if if he's the killer, did Rex Heuermann not improve the house and fix up the house because it was like a shrine to him? It was a memorial to his childhood. Did he turn his bedroom where abuse may have happened into a kill room, and it was some kind of psychological way of dealing with his past? Now that's a huge jump. I can't prove any of that. That was just allegations I saw on one of the mini documentaries, that the house was oddly not kept up, and that it was weird that it was his childhood home and looked exactly like it did when he grew up. No improvements have been made. So thanks for bringing that question up, because I had forgot to even mention that. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? For those who might be interested, by the way, my channel is growing slowly and steadily. As I was going to CrimeCon, I wanted to wear some merchandise that represents my channel. That merchandise is back from the screen printers and showed up. It's in boxes in my other room right now. I've taken pre-orders for people who wanted to get first edition runs ever of any Devil's Advocates merchandise. I've got zipper hoodies, I've got pullover hoodies, and I've got women's V-neck tees in 3 boxes on my floor out in the living room, not even unpacked. I've looked at one. It looks fucking amazing, if I might say so myself. It looks amazing. And so that's out there for, if you want to pick up a copy, you can go to my website at devilsadvocate.info/shop and pick yourself up possibly something if I have the size, because I had to do a limited run. I'm going to show you real quick on screen what it looks like, I think. There you go. That's a mock-up of what it looks like. Looking at it in person, it looks just like that. So it's a really good mock-up. That's what it looks like. It's fantastic. I love it. It's sharp. It's crisp. I'm going to wear that around the CrimeCon floor. If you want to get a copy of it in a pullover hoodie or a zipper hoodie or a women's V-neck tee, which has got a slightly different design, because obviously a women's V-neck tee has short sleeves and you don't have the Devil's Advocates running down the side of the sleeve. Other than that, everything else looks the same. So you can check that out there. And I think that's it. Any other comments before I say sayonara for the evening?
No.
That is the sound.
I think you're caught up.
I think I am. So, Essie's got a question.
Yep.
Michael Brown is going to make a big deal about the spat between Spoda and Dormer. Dormer said several killers and Spoda said one. So this is talking about the former, I think, chief of police and Spoda being the district attorney. And so, yeah, early on they came out and there were some disagreements about whether or not there was one killer or whether there was multiple killers. That's all part of the discussion. So it's all part of the discussion, and it's going to get big. It's going to be huge. So we'll just table that for another night, because that's a big discussion. And you're right. You have men's t-shirts. I unfortunately did not print any men's t-shirts this go around. Also, by the way, I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work if you're interested in merchandise, but if you notice my jerseys, whatever says facts over feelings, there was another slogan that I was playing with, which was the devil is in the details. My next run of merchandise is going to be the devil's in the details. I don't know yet whether I'm going to reprint more of these. It really depends on if people want to buy it, and I got some back orders. I'll consider doing that, because again, at the screen printers, this design is in the bag, and I can go back and ask them to print some again. But I'm going to also have a new design coming out later. I think we're too small of a channel to hit you with 2 freaking different jerseys or sweaters in the same time. But when I do that, I'll make some men's tees as well. So thank you for asking. If you want a men's tee in the facts over feelings versus the devil's in the details, let me know and I'll have them add another design, because that will have to be I bet you it's the same design they used for the women's V-neck. So maybe we're good there. Anyways. All right. So I think that is it, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. Please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you have a chance of seeing when I go live. Share me to anyone you think might get into this kind of stuff. I focus on 3 primary areas. I focus on being critical of mainstream media who convicts people in the court of public opinion before they've ever stepped into the court. I am critical of law enforcement who get narrow-sighted and decide who the killer is, and then they go after it and they start overlooking alternative suspects, like could happen in this case if Rex Heuermann isn't the killer of everyone and they just basically try to lump everything into it. Also, in this particular case, we have to look into critical of law enforcement on why they decided to dismantle the task force. What are they trying to hide? Are they friends with the killer or killers? What the fuck is going on in Suffolk County? We're going to try to follow follow that up. And then I also break down legal documents. I love breaking down legal documents. And I have attorneys who come on my show, multiple of them, including attorney John Ray, representing the families of Shannon Gilbert. So be watching for that premiere on September 10th. Tomorrow night as well, I'm going to have a sneak peek. I'm going to try to give a couple minutes of that interview with John Ray and I that I'm going to air on Pete Altieri's show, Murder, Metal, Mayhem. When the two of us go together, we call it Devil's Mayhem. It's kind of a mashup. And he knows that I want to show a couple minutes, just a couple teaser minutes of John Ray's and I's interview, which will air live for free for everybody on September 10th with John Ray, available for questions and answers afterward. Thank you all for coming and have a great night. See you guys.